Thank you so much, Mark. It's such a zchut to sit with you all, with this beautiful community. So I want to invite you, friends, to take your seat. If you're already sitting, take a moment, maybe close your eyes or gaze down, and take a moment to check in with your body. How am I sitting right now? Am I sitting in a way that is going to support the stillness, that is going to help me really, really go deep and find the space that I can find in this meditation practice today? Do I need to make any adjustments? And maybe you can even do something which is kind of get up and then sit down again. You can take this kind of half minute to do anything you need to really, really create your space. Kind of create your kli, your vessel for this meditation by really setting your body into place. And once you've found this kind of posture that enables you to be both very, very at ease, very comfortable, and also present, awake, alert, then we'll take a couple of deep breaths, landing in this space. Taking a deep breath in. Out. Breathing in, my spine stretches up naturally towards the sky. Breathing out, the weight of my body rests a little heavier towards the ground. Breathing in, I open my shoulders. And breathing out, I feel my hands on my lap. As if my brain right now is going in the sensations of my body. And I'm allowing my breath to flow at its own pace. Maybe noticing how my breath is right now. How my mind is right now. This is my dog in the space with me. So noticing what there is within us, around us. And reminding ourselves that everything is welcome. Everything belongs. Including agitation, including sadness, including the traffic noise outside, or a phone ringing, or a dog changing position. We're starting with a minute or two like this of welcoming this moment and welcoming our body and our mind exactly as it is today. holding space for our experience. And as we're sitting here in front of our cameras, can we model meditation for others? Can we inspire others by our posture? Can I offer my presence as an inspiration, as a support for others' practice today? Just kind of making space before we go into our little learning today. For one more minute. Just 1 minute of full presence. And let's take a beautiful breath in and out. I'm going to share a soul sheet. So you may open your eyes if you want to look at the text. And I want to invite you, if you feel already that you went kind of deep into some kind of quiet, I want to invite you to keep your eyes closed. And you can receive, you can hear the text with your eyes closed. And so today I want to talk about Parashat Korach. What we can learn from Parashat Korach. And just to give a little context again, just to remind us of the kind of the plot of the story, the pshat, the simple level of the story. Here we have someone from the tribe of Levi, of Levi, from the same tribe of Aaron and Moshe, a prince among Israel, who starts a rebellion, who takes other people with him and who says, who are you to rule over us? After all, aren't we all holy in the eyes of the divine? So why should you rule over us? And then there is a whole crisis within the people, with God getting really angry at them and God kind of proving the legitimacy of the leadership of Moshe and Aaron. The whole question of bad faith, basically bad faith when we have ambition and we want the power for ourselves, right? And I love the stories in the Torah, even when they hurt. I love them because, as the Sfat Emet said, they are mirrors. They are mirrors to us, human beings. Each of the characters, they're mirrors of us. And so in the pshat of the story here, we have the bad one and the good one. We have Korach, the bad one, and Moshe and Aaron, the good ones. And we tend to learn from all of these characters. And today I want to share something. The kind of learning I want to share with you is, I am Korach. I want to share really something about what would it do to us to identify with Korach, to identify with the anti-hero, to identify with the villain. I'm going to share my screen with the source sheet. And again, feel free to keep your eyes closed, because it really is about just a few words of intention, transmission, and then we'll go in our meditation. So the parasha opens with these words, Vaikach Korach just these two words, which are also very interestingly redundant. And Korach took, which grammatically is interesting because there is no object to the verb. But he took aside these people. That is the first meaning of it. And the Hasidic master, the Me'orenaim, whom I'm learning each week with a wonderful group, he offers several commentaries on this, Vaikach Korach. And this is one of the explanations he offers, one of the interpretations, one of the drashot. Listen to this, friends. He says, Ki yesh tzadik sheoved rak la'asot ta'anug labore baruch hu. Because there is the tzaddik, the righteous human, who serves the divine just to give pleasure to God. La'asot ta'anug, to give pleasure to the divine. ואצל זה הצדיק אין חילוק אם הוא עושה תענוג לבורא ברוך הוא, או צדיק אחר עושה תענוג לבורא ברוך הוא. And for such a tzaddik, there is no difference, chiluk. And chiluk, it's a difference, it's a separation, and it's exactly what Korach did. Right? Lachlok, machloket, debate, dispute also comes from this, to separate, to divide. Okay? And here he says, well, for such a tzaddik, there is no difference if it's himself who does that or someone else who gives that pleasure to the divine. It's not about me. It's about doing this. It's about serving the source of life. And then he continues, אבל מי שרוצה לקבל שכר על עבודתו, but the one who wants to receive a reward on their holy work, זה רוצה שהוא בעצמו יעשה תענוג לבורא. This one wants that it's him, himself, her, herself, they themselves, who gives ta'anug, pleasure to the source of life. וזהו ויקח קורח, שרוצה הוא ויקח ולא אחר. So, and this is what the meaning is for the Me'orenaim of the words ויקח קורח, that he wants to take credit. That's the interpretation of the Me'orenaim. It's not that he's taking people, that's the pshat, the literal level of reading of the story. Here, the Me'orenaim, and I'm going to stop sharing, interprets as, and he wants to take for himself. He wants to take the credit. Now I want to share with you two things. One is an anecdote by a teacher, a dear friend whom you may know, if you're part of the IGS community, Rabbi Jordan Bendat Apple. And once he was saying this story that he was at a wedding with his son, with his kid, a very small kid. And the kid was the ring bearer. So he had an amazing role, right? That's an amazing role to have in a wedding, yeah? But the kid, he saw the bride and the groom standing under the chuppah, and he was like, but I want to be there. I want to do what they're doing. I want to be the chatan. And Jordan said to his son, but you're the ring bearer. Look at this, you're the ring bearer. And maybe, one day you'll be the chatan, but today it's not you. It's his, role and your role. You're the ring bearer. How amazing is this? And Jordan was kind of sharing with us this anecdote to talk about ego, what ego does. And that ego is, I want to be in the center. I want to be, even if it's not my place, right? Ego forgets that. Ego doesn't see that. It's not relevant. It's not, doesn't make sense, right? I want to be the one there, right there doing this. And what I love about this story is that Jordan is talking about the person, one of the people in the world he probably loves the most, his child. And it's a way of reminding us that ego is natural. Ego is natural. It's a natural impulse that we want to be center stage, that we want to be the first, that we want to be, that's the ego. And yet we don't want to leave from that place, do we? We don't want to be, try to push away the one who's, the chatan or the Moshe who is, serving us by leading the community and being so unskillful and doing something that is not kind of relevant and it wouldn't make sense for a 7-year-old to be the chatan, right? And yet the ego wants that. And we see the damage in the world it does when we want to be center stage, when we want to be the one doing the thing, even when it has nothing, to do with the story. And this is where we come to spiritual practice and to the holy work that each of you is doing today, friends. Each of you who came to sit today. Each of you who took the time and had the courage to sit still and do nothing, which looks like nothing, right? And sometimes even it's so boring that we may start doubting it. What am I doing here anyway? Oh, I had this phone call to make, or maybe I can make it while they're talking, because I have something else to do. But why are we doing this? Why are we taking this time to do nothing? Right? When we take time to do nothing with no distractions, just really facing ourselves, which can be quite painful at times, right? Especially if the mind is agitated, especially when there is anxiety or pain. But when we have the courage to sit with nothing else in front of us, no distraction, nowhere to run away, then we meet ourselves. And then we meet our ego. We get to bring what the Mira calls that awareness. Oh, this is what's alive in me right now. Oh, okay. I have thoughts of envy. I have thoughts of competition. I have thoughts of grasping. And what we learn in the practice is not just to see this, it's also to bring compassion to it. Yes, I am human. It's part of the natural impulse of being human. And then comes a third stage in the practice. And I don't have to identify with that. I don't have to act upon that. I can see it. I can welcome it. I can acknowledge it. I don't have to let it rule. I can choose to be the ring bearer. I can choose to be Korach, the Korach that I was meant to be. I can choose to be a prince in charge of the Mishkan and gratefully and gracefully playing my part in the collective. In the collective, the baker is as important as the president, aren't they? And the prince is as important as the political leader, aren't they? So this is an invitation, friends. We're going to sit quietly and just be with ourselves. Just be with ourselves in appreciation for our unique place in the world. Because your place is absolutely unique. So let's sit with that in appreciation, in presence, attending to it. And attending to it simply means staying present in your body, letting your thoughts do what they do, which is coming up, letting them come up and be and pass at their own pace. Even when they come in a loop. And the whole practice is to come back to your embodied presence through sensing your breath, or through sensing your feet or your hands where they are right now. Perfect stillness. And I keep softening in my stillness. Can I trust the process? And I show up in full presence for the last minute of this seat. Present to each in-breath and to each out-breath. And I set an intention as we come to a close today, to be my full self and to offer exactly who I am to people around me today. To take the right place, to offer the gift of who I am. Nothing more, nothing less. The splendor of who I am. Take a beautiful breath in. And with a breath out, coming at your own pace to open your eyes. A moment to thanking yourself for your beautiful practice. Thanking each other for this collective presence. And let's get ready to say Kaddish with Rabbi Mark.
With a real bow of gratitude to you, Rabbah Mira, for this really exquisite teaching and practice today, inspired by Parshat Korach. And we seal the practice, as we do each time, friends, with an opportunity. Those of us who are in mourning or observing Yortzeit, for some it might be the custom to participate in the Mourner's Kaddish. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, please stay present for those who are. Create a minyan of support, comfort, compassion. Thanks to Jet for sharing the words of Kaddish on the screen. And if you're reciting them, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Ya'amad Divra Chirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayechi V'yamecho, V'chayei T'chol Beit Yisrael, Ha'agala B'zman Karitru, Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Ha'olam, V'mei Amaya, Barach, Shishbach, Ha'ar, Shramam, V'nestei, Ela min kol birchata v'shpachta v'ushpachata v'nechamata ta'amiran ba'alma.
Amen.
Neshamah Rabbah Neshamah Ima Levi Kol Yisrael
Amen.
Yaseh Shalom Bibramav Yaseh Shalom Aleinu v'al Kol Yisrael El Kol Yoshvei Tevel Yeru Amen.
Amen. Holy brother.
And friends, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank Martin Gewurtz. Martin, thank you so much for sponsoring our practice today in loving memory of your beloved parents. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be a blessing for you. Thanks to Jeff Bachman for holding our space with so much skill and grace today, and to our teacher, Rabbah, Dr. Mira Neshamah Weil, for leading us as you have so many times. So beautifully today. And of course, everyone's invited to stay on if you'd like to continue just to sit with us and to use this time and space as a container for your practice. More than welcome to do so. You can maybe just turn off the volume on your device or your computer if you'd like to do that. But you're also welcome to join us for conversation with Mira about the teaching today, or to ask questions. And you can use the chat function for that. If it's a question, if you write in the chat, please write in the chat and preface it by writing question. And Jet, if you wouldn't mind putting, if you didn't already, I haven't taken a look at the chat yet, but the links to Rabbah Mira's daily meditation, sit in the mornings, and also the weekly study with based on the Torah portion, based on the Meor and Naim. I think we got a beautiful taste of that today, and information about the upcoming retreat for women that Mira is co-leading. So Mira, let me invite you in here. And thank you again, as always. I loved everything about this teaching today, I have to say. I guess some things I want to just kind of like bring back up to the surface for a moment. Number one, everything was a gem. Everything was worth the price of admission. Number one, the idea of Torah being a mirror into our own inner life and our own souls. And being grateful even for the parts of Torah that feel problematic and challenging, because maybe they reveal that which is challenging within us. And so then you identify that one of those issues being the challenge of our own ego, being caught up in it, and how inevitable that is. And the interplay between Moshe and Korach here is interesting, because of course Moshe is known for his anavah, right? His humility. So that's another inner voice, because we have that Moshe within us as well. And we have the Korach within us as well. So here's the question. I think you answered this, but I think worth staying with this teaching as a takeaway that we can bring into the rest of the day and the rest of our lives is, all right, so the ego is the purpose of our practice to nullify, negate, deflate the ego, which I think the answer that you gave is no, that's not what we're supposed to do. That the ego is also a sacred part of ourselves, but that it can take over, right? And it can become too powerful and lose its function. So here's the specific question of, how does the practice help us stay focused on the proper function of the ego and the self? You answered that, but I want to invite you to kind of restate that again, because I think it's just so important that our purpose here is not to be egoless, or is it?
Thank you, Mark, because I think it's a central conversation. So it is important to come back and to take time to unpack this. First of all, I just want to thank people for your lovely messages, and also Martin for sponsoring the seat, and to say that I sat really in memory in honor of the Neshamah of Sarah
Mm.
Norman. And also I saw the dedications during the Kaddish, and I also really took these with me. You know, in a literal sense, the ego in Latin is the self. And so all of these names that we've seen ourselves are individuals, and the individual is precious in the Jewish tradition, right? Each neshama is unique, and each neshama has a tafkid, has a role to play in the world. So much so that the Talmud tells us that, one who saves a life is like they're saving an entire world. And the kind of value of the uniqueness of each of us is important. And there is this crazy, wonderful story in the Talmud about when the sages tried to eradicate the Yetzer Hara from the world. And it was granted to them that the Yetzer Hara would disappear from the world. So, the bad inclination, which is basically the ego, the wanting, the grasping, the wanting everything for myself. And when that happened, some of you may know the story, right? There was no one egg to be found on earth. There was no more eggs, which means there was no more fertility. There was no more aliveness. Life couldn't continue without the ego, because in a way, if there is no self, how can I meet you? How can I connect to you if there is no self? And it's kind of the whole dilemma of spiritual practice, that in a way, just like we saw in the past, that la'avod Hashem, to serve the divine, we do it so that we can give pleasure to the divine. And here we find something very central to most world spiritualities, this notion of pleasure, that the source of life created life so that through us we can be mirrors and interlocutors, so that the source of life can enjoy itself through us, through our own oneg and ana'ah of the world. And so if there was no selves, if there was no ego, there wouldn't be this capacity, this kind of the possibility of relationship, both between ourselves and with the divine. Okay, that's on one side. On the other hand, actually, when you go to more in-depth spiritual practice, it very much is about bitul hayesh, right? So the nullification of the ego. But I think the translation in English isn't beautiful, right? There is something. I love to translate in a way levatel as a form of surrender, as a form of remembering. This metaphor that the wave is alone, but the wave is part of the ocean, right? And the wave thinks it's going to die, but actually the ocean, right? And she's both. She's both herself and the ocean. And so the bitul hayesh, it's just realizing that our profound nature is the ocean. My profound nature is not Mira with this, gender and this, identity. This is going to die. This in a few decades is, rotting under the earth, and I like to say it because I like to remind myself of it. It's important to remember. And in Hasidut, there are a lot of death meditations. We talked about it recently with a class. To remember that this is relative. So that's my ego. And if I take it too seriously, I'm going to suffer a lot. Okay, most of our suffering, if we pay attention, it comes from this. Most of us, right? Oh, they didn't pay attention to me, or they responded this way, or But if I realize that this relative being is meaningful in itself, right? I have my unique contribution to bring to the tikkun of the world, to the healing of the world. And this is how I finish the meditation, right? That each of us, and I'm looking at your faces right now, friends, each of us, we have our unique contribution. And this one is relative, right? My deeper truth is that I am part of the ocean, and that when this relative, life is going to die, it's going to dissolve back in the oneness of things. And so this is bitul hayesh. It's not saying I don't exist because I do, and I need to feed myself, and but it's to remember that really I am on a certain level nothing much, and I'm also everything. Just like there's this precious teaching of
Simcha Bunim
of Psicha, which I can't pronounce in Polish, right? That he has 2 slips of paper, right, in his pockets, and I'm sure many of you know the story, but I'm saying it. So one is saying, I'm nothing but, dust and ashes. And the other slip of paper is saying the whole world was created for my sake.
Right.
And we need to hold both truths, and we also need to know when to remember which one. I think that's the second part of the story that's important to remember. That when I feel self-deprecating and, self-shame, and which is another side of the ego, self-hatred, I need to remember that I'm so precious. And that when I feel grandiose and better, that, I need to remember that, I'm just dust and ashes.
Thank you for all of that. And I think it's also to underscore what anava, what humility, translated as humility, but not so helpful, because in English, humility, at least the English word humility, maybe in other languages less so, has that connotation of disparagement, self-deprecation, of lowering self. I guess in Hebrew, shiflut might be something that's a little closer to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anava is modeled by Moshe. What I love about Moshe as a character is that I feel as though most of the time, not always, because his ego gets plenty involved, lots of times, right? But at his best, especially at the end when he's about to die, he really does experience himself as a wave that is also water, right? That is also ocean. And he doesn't feel threatened. He doesn't feel threatened. He doesn't feel afraid. He doesn't feel angry. He doesn't feel resentful. He doesn't express any of this. He just expresses confidence in the totality. And those of you who are here who have done our awareness and action program on Midot know that this is how anava is presented, as this kind of integration of the terms you're using here, a yesh of materiality, gashmiyut, physicality, embodiment, and ayin, which is nothing, right? That we are both. That we're both. We are yesh me ayin. We come from ayin, and like you just said, we're all headed towards back to ayin. The waves, we're each a wave. So here's the challenge. We only have a couple of minutes. Here's the objection. Objection. Yeah, Moshe, easy for you to say to them, everyone has a role. You have a beautiful role. Everyone is unique. Everyone plays their particular role. And as you said, even the baker is just as important, right? There is a little voice in my head that says that that's a prescription for the status quo, like, right? You say like, oh, you're very important. You don't, how do you have a quick answer for that? Because there's a little bit of that in me that says that, if I'm in for example, if a powerless position, a powerful person says to me, oh, you play a very important role,
Yeah. I thank you for saying this, because I think, discussion becomes more interesting when we go all the way with the kind of, how do you call it, when we push against, like when we actually like, okay, let's be tachlis. And so I'll tell you what's coming to mind. I would not want to be Moshe. Okay, Moshe has more prestige.
And he didn't want to be Moshe either.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. If you look at the whole Chumash, from the moment he goes to see Pharaoh the first time, he is being insulted all the time. Basically, people accusing him, how do you call it, rebelling against him. It's like, I wouldn't like to be the Queen of England. The Queen of England had no life, no personal, like, you're just a role, you don't exist, that's an example. But
it's an example of service, right? It's exactly,
but Moshe, it's like
living a life of service.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't think people, when we fantasize on film, I admire Natalie Portman. I adore her. I would not, she can't go to the bakery. Speaking of bakery, she can't, she needs, bodyguards. And I mean, everything has a price. And I think these are the delusions also that, so we want the good things they have, but we don't want the price that they're paying.
Right.
I don't think we realize the loneliness of the leader, how much you get insulted. I mean, look at Moshe, how, he's just, I think, this is something some people are chosen because maybe they have more charisma or more, these qualities. But why do we say that I'm serious, huh? why being, a famous, rich and powerful and charismatic and beautiful person, why is it more valuable?
Mhm.
That, I mean, I do think that Gan Eden is in simplicity, the simplicity of intimacy, of, literally like Voltaire wrote this book, Candide, Cultivating Your Garden, literally cultivating your garden, having peace, not having the weight. And one day, like everybody's praising you, the next day everybody's insulting you, like, I don't think, yeah.
Well, your closing blessing, your closing bracha meditation, which I encourage people to go back to the recording, to listen to that again. It's just so beautiful, inviting each one of us to really embrace the preciousness of our own uniqueness, which is an essential part of the way we understand Anava, is to own ourselves. All right, we could go on. This is really so interesting, and I see wonderful things in the chat as well. So people want to chat this out. So we will continue. That's the good thing is that you'll be back.
Yeah, I just want to apologize because I'm seeing and I don't have time to read them, but wonderful questions, and I'm so sorry we didn't get to address them all. And feel free to be in touch, really. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Kol Tov, Shabbat Shalom to you. And thank you so much. Always special to be with you, Mira. Thank you so much for sharing this beautiful teaching and practice. Thanks to Jet for holding our space. Martin, thank you so much for sponsoring. And each of you, thanks for being here. So we hope to see you tomorrow. Unfortunately, Rebecca Schisler cannot join us tomorrow, so I will be leading us to sit into Shabbat together. I look forward to that. Hope you'll join us and wish you all an early Shabbat Shalom. Hope to see you tomorrow. Be well, everyone.